Greetings, YouTube. Meet Mr. Chompy. So why do I have Mr. Chompy? Well, I'm a collector of the strange and bizarre. But, whoa! I also dropped Mr. Chompy. But I also think he's highly appropriate to the fact that I am going to review Still Life: Adventures in Taxidermy by Melissa Milgram. In fact, I picked him. I bought this particular head yesterday, even though I had completely forgotten I had this book to review. I had a very large stack of books here I had to review, and I've been going through them today, trying to get caught up. So, this book, as the title suggests, deals with taxidermy. Deals with the history of taxidermy. It deals with the current art of taxidermy, and it also deals with taxidermy as it is going to be expressed in art, and how the taxidermy arts are themselves changing. Now, the book deals with some very specific individuals that appear throughout the text, but then also deals with the technical aspects of the art of taxidermy through the lens of talking to individual people. So the author interviews them, gets to know them, and eventually gets to actually do some of her own taxidermy, which I thought was quite interesting. I think it's good when you see an author really immerse themselves in a topic. Now, this is a very primitive taxidermy job. I mean, look, it's got marbles for eyes. I mean, that is not what you'd call high tech. And I mean, it's a skull that's been covered in lacquer and such, dried and then covered in lacquer. But it will look good on my shelf. And the book is going to disturb some people. I should throw that out there, because the author gets into the very nitty-gritty detail of what goes in to doing taxidermy. Talks about the past and how it was done, sometimes with lethal chemicals that were dangerous to the people doing the taxidermy. How some of those earlier taxidermied items have weathered the time, weathered the ages, and not weathered the ages well. If they're not preserved, they can be moth-eaten, they can be just... the armatures can fail. The types of materials that were used can break down over time. How some pieces are trying to be desperately preserved for the future. How taxidermy has fallen out of fashion in many ways, and a lot of the taxidermy being done is amateur things like this, or it's being done for the hunting market, and those aren't necessarily being done to the highest standards of the art. Some countries you have to have a certification process, and some countries you don't, so it all depends. There are people that are dealing in, of course, black market taxidermy, which is dealing with endangered species, and that's horrible. Interestingly, there's an entire school of taxidermy that goes about recreating creatures while using the body parts of other animals. So if you were to create, say, a piece of a turkey, it has to look like a turkey, but it can't use any of the parts of a turkey. And that's kind of cool, because not only is it a really high level of skill to achieve that end, but it allows you to recreate creatures that we don't have access to. Prehistoric, real-world creatures, but also fantasy creatures. And I really like that idea. And there's an art in here where they take an animal and they coat it in a plastic, and then they allow the animal to disintegrate, rot. Then they extract that, fill the center with a mold, and remove the original plastic they had used, with now all the fur and things embedded in the inside mold. So you have a perfect preserved copy of the animal without any of the skin, just the hair and everything preserved in place, which to me is fascinating. Yet some taxidermy people say isn't taxidermy because there is no skin involved. So you've got these fights going on within the intact taxidermy artist community in and of itself. So if you enjoy the unique individuals that can be found in an unusual hobby and an unusual career, this book is definitely something you're going to enjoy. But you have to have a slightly high tolerance for the slightly disturbing, because there are things in this which are kind of gross, and they're going to throw some people off. It's going to mean that they're not going to want to have anything to do with the book, which is a pity. It's a good book, but I can understand how some people will be disturbed by it. If you are a really staunch animal rights activist, you are probably not going to want to read this book. I am not that. I'm an unrepentant omnivore, and I have no problem with using byproducts of animals. I've got a head in my hand. So I think that it was good. I enjoyed myself. I recommend it. But be aware that there will be certain readers that may not enjoy it because of what it is written about. But for the rest of us, I definitely think that you will get a good read out of Still Life.